I have a bad feeling about this. How's it going, old schoolers? You're kicking it old school. It's your host, Russell J.S., and I am your host, Russell J.S. Remember, I encourage you that if you're new to the channel, please hit a like, a subscribe, and comment in the box down below and share the video content with your friends. Also, check out videos, ring the bell for notifications. Check out videos for the weekly narc as well. Hold on, I gotta get me a drink. I'll be right with you. So anyway, what was I talking about where I said I have a bad feeling about this? Obviously, you see me wearing a Star Wars t-shirt. And, what do we know about Star Wars? Most awesome cinematic franchise ever to be put on celluloid. Changed the way we look at movies, look at special effects. Started a whole new thing with movies with a merchandise racket. I mean, comic books, storybooks, novels, video games, even new TV series. Also, an original trilogy, with movies that took place in battles in outer space and on land, lightsaber duels. I mean, Star Wars had everything that you wanted in modern mythology. George Lucas was such a genius when he created that franchise back in the 1970s. And then Disney took it over, and they put out a batch of new Star Wars movies that I think, in my opinion, they're okay. They're not bad. But in my opinion, they get wrongfully overlooked. Now, I'm not going to include the prequel trilogy and the sequel and the original trilogy. I'm talking about the sequel trilogy and the two standoff movies. And I want to talk about these movies, how I feel about them, and, what are my likes and my dislikes. So without further ado, let's check these bad Oscars out, shall we? And, this is what I'm doing with Kicking It Old School. I'm reviewing stuff like that. Like you saw the video I did for Blues Brothers 2000, how I felt it was a sequel that went unappreciated, when really it should have gotten the credit and the appreciation it deserved. Because it did the first movie, the original classic, a good justice, and paid homage to the memory of John Belushi, keeping his legacy alive. Now, let's go ahead and dive in. The first movie I'm going to speak of, Episode 7, The Force Awakens. Now, a lot of people, when it came to this movie, a lot of people said that it was a reboot of the original. Yes and no. Of course, yes, you have it where, the villains, the New Empire, the New Order, whatever they want to call themselves, that came from the Empire, you have them invading on a desert planet, and you have somebody sending a droid out to bring information to the Resistance, or AKA the Rebellion. And you get to be introduced to new characters and reintroduced to old characters as well. Now, the one thing I did not like, I went to see this at the theater in 3D, and I want to go ahead and say something. If you haven't seen these movies, there's going to be some spoilers. So right now, your best bet would be to shut this video off at this time and find a way to watch these movies, whether you can get them on disc or on Hulu or Netflix or whatever streaming service your cable and internet provides, because there's going to be spoilers to this. And you also have a new villain that's kind of a descendant to Darth Vader named Kylo Ren, which he wants to look cool and bad, dressed in black and wear a mask like his grandfather, Darth Vader, did many years ago. But what Kylo Ren didn't understand was his grandfather needed that armor. He needed the breathing apparatuses because he couldn't breathe properly due to his lungs and his body being torched and scorched from lava when he got defeated by Obi-Wan Kenobi in Episode 3. But, it's like, one of the things that bothered me about this movie, I mean, I loved the action. I love the new characters of Poe Dameron, Finn, and Rey. Kylo Ren was an okay villain. He was kind of a prissy brat in a way. And I did like that new droid BB-8. As a matter of fact, I thought he was kind of cute in a way. He was kind of funny. He was very comedic. Was no R2-D2, but, hey. But they go in, and here's where it is. It's, a lot of people will say it's a remake of the original because now they got Starkiller Base and not a Death Star. And Starkiller Base is a planet itself with a big, gigantic laser that could blow up multiple planets with the energy of the sun. And they got to destroy it. Sure, that's kind of like the original. But Luke Skywalker doesn't even show up. If you wanted to make it, say it's a full-on remake, have it where, it's Luke Skywalker that shows up first and not Han Solo and Chewbacca. I mean, he shows up at the end, but, hold on a sec. Excuse me for that. But the thing is, they kill off Han Solo because, come to find out, Kylo Ren was really his son, Ben Solo, who got seduced by the dark side, and he was actually more powerful than even Darth Vader ever was. And of course, Ben Solo, he was more consumed than his grandfather was on ruling the galaxy. He was consumed by a leader that was similar to Emperor Palpatine named Snoke, which Snoke kind of looked like Jason Voorhees without his hockey mask on crack. Okay? That's what Snoke reminded me of. And what happens is he's convinced by Snoke, in order for him to be all-powerful, he's got to kill his father, Han Solo, which he does. And no matter how many times, the first time I saw this at the theater in 3D, and even to this day when I watch this and I watch Han Solo get it right in the chest with a lightsaber, yeah, Harrison Ford got his wish. Story behind that. During Empire Strikes Back, he was asking George Lucas to write it off where Han Solo died in the carbonite. And George Lucas refused. And during the filming of Return of the Jedi, he was begging George Lucas to kill Han Solo off by falling into the Sarlacc pit or getting killed during the Battle of Endor. And George Lucas refused. And when Harrison Ford asked why, George Lucas said, because dead guys don't sell action figures. Well, living proof was, I was down at Walmart and Target, and I saw a lot of Star Wars toys in the bargain bin. They were trying to get rid of them. But lo and behold, they destroy Starkiller Base, and what BB-8 had that they needed was a map to Luke Skywalker, which Rey and Chewbacca and R2-D2 get in the Millennium Falcon and fly to wherever it is Luke Skywalker's at. And just when the movie is starting to get really good, where you see Luke Skywalker reveal himself in his Jedi robe, it ends. Now, to say that it's a remake, like I said, yes and no. Yes and no. I mean, it's a whole different movie, and it's always been a tradition when they've made Star Wars trilogies that a main character, a main hero, has to go out. I mean, in the original trilogy, in the first movie of the original trilogy, Ben Kenobi sacrifices his life. In the Phantom Menace from the prequel trilogy, Qui-Gon Jinn, I guess he got distracted and he got it from Darth Maul with a lightsaber. But I actually, to be honest with you, I took a look at this movie, and I think it's actually it's fairly decent. It's a fairly decent movie. It's not great. I mean, yeah, it's not going with the canon, with the novels and the comic books and whatnot, but you know what? again, with all of these, I was grateful that they had a new Star Wars movie out. I was grateful that they were bringing out new Star Wars movies. Now I hear George Lucas is buying back Lucasfilm. All right, the next one we're going to look at, Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. Now, to me, this was one of the best ones out of the Disney Star Wars. I actually think of it as the best Star Wars movie since The Empire Strikes Back. I mean, it's old school Star Wars at its finest. You see some of the older characters make cameos, and, that's about it. But I really fell in love with the new characters. I really like Cassian Andor. I love Jen Erso. And I love the fact that they had the technology to and they got permission from the estate to put Peter Cushing back on screen as Governor Tarkin. And this is the story of how they built the Death Star and how it was Jen Erso's father who put that flaw in the Death Star where later on, not the rebels, but Luke blew it up. Like Dante Hicks in Clerks said, give credit where credit's due. Luke blew it up. But, I love how this movie ends. I like how they retrieve the Death Star plans, and Cassian Andor and Jen Erso sacrifice themselves to get it transmitted to the Rebel Alliance. And you see Princess Leia at the end. They ask what that is, and she says, hope. Ship goes into light speed, and boom, there's a climactic ending, which will begin in the original Star Wars movie that we all grew to love. This is my favorite out of all the Disney Star Wars. All right, next one from 2007. It's 2017, I mean. Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. Now, here's what I don't like about this one. It had a good story. I love how, and again, to me, it's 50-50, yes and no, that they reboot the original trilogy. But in actuality, in many ways, this movie to me, this is my least favorite, not only of the Disney Star Wars, but all the Star Wars movies, even though I saw it twice at the theater. I mean, yeah. It starts out where The Force Awakens left off, where all of a sudden, what's her name? God. Rey meets up with Luke Skywalker, and Luke Skywalker's a crotchety old man he reminds me of John Rambo in Rambo 3, and in Rambo 4, when Rambo doesn't want anything to do with war anymore. He's in a far-off land to die. He just wants to live the rest of his life in peace and solitude and then die, but doesn't realize what he has to do. And the thing is, this movie just drags on. It really drags. I mean, that's the only thing I don't like. It was very long and it drags. And I don't like the title, The Last Jedi. And I'll tell you why. Because for 40 years, since Return of the Jedi came out, we've referred to Return of the Jedi as Jedi. Nowadays, I could be sitting at home watching either this or Return of the Jedi. Somebody calls me up, hey man, what you doing? I'm sitting here watching Jedi. Or is it Return of the Jedi or The Last Jedi? I mean, just this title alone, I refer to this as Jedi 2. Because to me, Return of the Jedi will always be Jedi. Just like The Empire Strikes Back will always be Empire. But yeah, this is my least favorite out of any of the Star Wars movies that have come out in the last 40 plus years. And moving on after that, we have Solo, A Star Wars Story, which, let me see if I can pronounce the actor's name right. I think it's, Alden Ehrenreich. I mean, pretty much almost has a great all-star cast. It has Woody Harrelson, Game of Thrones, Emilia Clarke. And she was one heck of a Sarah Connor, too. Donald Glover, Thandie Newton. And, I'll tell you, Alden really did a good job playing a young Han Solo. And what's really great about this, not only directed by Ron Howard, but and you know what? I couldn't believe that the critics just panned this movie. They hated it. I thought it was really good. Again, it wasn't the greatest, but you know what? It was good enough for me. I mean, Alden was a really great. He looked more like a very trim Jack Black than he did Harrison Ford. Now, they could have done for him what they did for Ewan McGregor when they used the CGI to make Ewan McGregor look kind of like a young Alec Guinness. But instead, they just let him look the same way he looks in real life. And in my opinion, in this movie, he kind of looks like a young, very trim, very slim Jack Black. If Jack Black would just go to the gym and, he got beefed up and, he was a little taller. But other than that, I love the story. I mean, Han Solo is like a childhood hero of mine, right next to Rambo and right next to Indy. And you know what? I love the story, and I love how Donald Glover as Lando Calrissian. Oh my God, he could pass for the son of Billy D. Williams. He really could. I mean, he almost looks as if, oh yeah, Han, about that time you were in Carbonite. Well, me and Leia were kind of drunk, and one thing led to another, and well, that's how Donald Glover has a resemblance to Billy D. Williams in real life. I mean, they really did good with picking that actor as Billy D. I also forgot to mention, I believe it was Peter Mayhew's last appearance, I think. Yeah, I think it was, I don't know, I'll have to go back to these, because I think Peter Mayhew's last appearance as Chewbacca was in The Force Awakens. And then he retired from acting, and sadly, he passed away. But really sad was when this one came out, Carrie Fisher had already passed away due to cardiac arrest, but she did finish all her scenes in this movie before she died. And I'll tell you, Emilia Clarke was a really good love interest for Han in this movie. She was no Princess Leia, but I thought she was really good. And, I love that they put Woody Harrelson in this to play a fellow smuggler that's training Han into the world of smuggling. And don't worry about what critics say. Pick this up, okay, and watch it. It is really good. All right, and now, last but not least, Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. Again, yes, this is, in fact, a 50-50 on the whole, remake, original, whatever have you, whatever it is. But, they made it similar to the original trilogy. That's where the remake to me is. I mean, you get introduced to new characters, again, like in the previous two films, and reintroduced to old characters. And, it's almost like Return of the Jedi in a way, but I really honestly, it's the return of Palpatine. He's a clone in this one, a withering, aging clone. He allowed his DNA to be cloned just in case anything happened to him. And we come to find out that Rey is actually a Palpatine. I can remember when the first two movies came about, we thought, Rey would be related to, say, Obi-Wan Kenobi, or related to Luke Skywalker. But one thing that's really cool was Carrie Fisher had already passed away. It had been a couple of years since she passed away when this came out, but they still did one hell of a job keeping her alive in this. It was pure brilliance. I actually, out of the three of the sequel trilogies, out of the three movies of the Disney sequel trilogy, It's this one I love the most, and I also love The Force Awakens. And with all the Disney Star Wars, Rogue One is my favorite. I mean, now, I said at the beginning of this video, these movies right here, it's funny how on Disney Plus, people could talk about how great the Mandalorian show is, or the Book of Boba Fett, or Andor, or Kenobi. But they look at these movies as if they're garbage, and everybody was complaining. I mean, sure, they put a little wokeness in it. It's Disney. What do you expect? But the thing is, I was just happy to see new Star Wars movies. I mean, I've been a fan of the franchise as far as I can remember. And, and now, George Lucas wants to recreate the sequel trilogy. I mean, how is he going to, I'm thinking to myself how he's going to do that. And then I saw what they're going to do, because in the new Indiana Jones coming out this summer, they're doing this thing where Harrison Ford is doing scenes that take place in the early 1940s. And Harrison Ford's 80 years old now. And they're doing these scenes where they took the CGI and they made him look like the younger Indiana Jones that we first saw in Raiders of the Lost Ark over 40 years ago. And God, I can't believe it's been over 40 years since Raiders of the Lost Ark. But all in all, I have nothing at all against these 5 movies. I mean, once in a great while, because now there's so many Star Wars movies, like there's so many James Bond, so many Fast and Furious, with all these franchises, Marvel and DC, which for the longest time I was swearing off Marvel and DC movies, but I saw the Flash trailer and Michael Keaton returning as Batman. I'm impressed. I think I'm going to go and see that. But all in all, with these movies, if George Lucas goes ahead and buys back Lucasfilm, fires Kathleen Kennedy, and, keeps Jon Favreau, J.J. Abrams, God bless him. Truthfully and honestly, I would love to see a movie that is actually based on the original script that George Lucas himself penned in a notebook simply titled The Star Wars, which was totally different than what we fell in love with. Well, that's all the time I have for this video. And remember, again, like I said, if you're new to the channel, feel free to hit a like, subscribe, drop a comment in the box down below. And also, ring the bell for notification. I put out content on the Weekly Narc. If you're somebody that's involved in a narcissistic friendship or relationship, or somebody, watch these videos, watch videos of others. There's plenty of content out there about it too. And, I'm getting ready to do some new videos. I got a Father's Day video coming up for, Kicking It Old School and the Weekly Narc. And, I got more content coming. I mean, I was going to have more content. I would have had at least 5 or 6 videos done by now already, but I was nursing. I have this pinched nerve in my back I've told you about in all the other videos. And I just had pain like shooting right here in my arm. I mean, I couldn't even play my guitar. But I'm working on healing, getting it better. But yeah, I do hope you enjoy the content. I hope you subscribe. I mean, I want to build up a following, a huge following. I now got 47 subscribers. Thank you, number 47. And, I'm going to leave you with always is, keep it real, live life simple, get you enough of love, get you enough of courage, get you enough of strength, get you enough of God, anything that you love, get enough of if you can. Keep it real, keep it chill, keep it fresh, live life simple, good vibes, good positive vibes, keep it real, Godspeed, may the force be with you always.